Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to News Tonight. We're live from our studios here at Kokomlemle in Accra. Well, the bulletin is also live on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi and on over 30 affiliates across the country. Well, tonight, Vice President Naana Jane Opoku-Agyemang declares Volta Lake incident which killed 16 people a national tragedy as she demands immediate action to prevent future occurrence.
Those of you who travel on the water, ensure that everyone on board wears a life jacket. We need to protect ourselves.
Well, she's provided 200,000 Ghana cedis relief package for families of the victims. More on the Volta Lake tragedy shortly.
Also, Ghana and China are set to finalize a zero-tariff trade agreement by the end of October 2025, paving the way for Ghanaian goods to enter the Chinese market duty-free. Tonight on Newsnight, we find out if this landmark deal will boost Ghana's export and industrial growth or hurt it.
It opens vast new markets for Ghanaian exporters, agro-processors and manufacturers. And I'm happy to inform you that we reached agreement in principle and we have targeted the end of October to be able to sign off.
More as President Mahama meets Chinese President Xi Jinping on day 2 of his state visit. In business,
IMF warns Ghana is not immune against the global economic shocks, despite a recent turnaround as it pushes for strict fiscal discipline and building of buffers.
And in sports, Nigeria's Super Eagles await FIFA World Cup fate despite 4-0 win over Benin.
And a bit later, National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat NAIMOS cracks down on illegal mining in Eastern region, dismantles operations and uncovers widespread environmental destruction. We have details as leaders of organized labor trade blames on which unions may have broken their fronts after the botched industrial action over Galamsey last year.
Then we realized some level of betrayal from the hierarchy of TUC.
The allegation that the TUC betrayed UTAG and for that matter, the rest of organized labor is a baseless allegation.
It was not the TUC that betrayed the cause. It was the Ghana Medical Association and then the next.
We've got the latest of these and many other stories coming up in the next 1 hour. My name is Kenneth. Gyasi.
And I am Ofori.
Remember, you can be a part of this show by sending us a WhatsApp on 055 11 11 997. Details after this.
You're welcome back to Newsnight. Vice President Professor Naana Jane Opoku-Agyemang has labelled the devastating canoe accident on the Volta Lake, which claimed 16 innocent lives, including 11 children, as a national tragedy, demanding urgent need for collective action to prevent such heart-rending incidents in future. Professor Opoku-Agyemang, accompanied by the Transport Minister Joseph Bukari-Nikbe and NADMO Director General Major Retired Dr. Joseph Kunyon, visited the affected families in Okumekra, Karachi West Municipality in the Ofori region to offer condolences and support.
Well, she has extended a 200,000 Ghana cedis relief package complete with life jackets and essential items to support families devastated by the tragic canoe accident. She emphasized the need for stakeholders to work together to ensure their safety protocols are strictly adhered to on the Volta Lake. Take a listen.
Life jackets. Ye best pa ye pamucho. Yense. Yense na ewo kwanya ebo nipa wo ban. Those of you who travel on the water, ensure that everyone on board wears a life jacket before setting out. We need to protect ourselves so that this kind of tragedy never happens again. There is nothing we can say that can heal the pain of someone who has lost a loved one, but together we can prevent such pain from happening to others.
You hear that the Vice President, Professor Jane Naana Opoku-Agyemang, joining us via telephone is Obrin Pons, and he's with our sister station at Dome FM. He joined the Vice President visit to the affected families. Good evening and thank you for your time on Newsnight. Now, we know that the Vice President has also said that government will bear the cost of burial for the 16 persons who died in that boat disaster. Beyond this, what else has she been saying?
She has been advising residents along the Volta Lake to ensure or to adhere to safety protocols, because that's the only way that can prevent the continual accident that is happening on the Volta Lake. Aside that, she also expressed a condolence to the family, urging them to remain calm while government continue to mourn with them. Aside that, she also encourage the members here, although the tragedy have taken lives of over 16 people, which she described it as a national loss to the state. But, however, government will continue to ensure that whatever cost that may happen to them for the funeral and other arrangements, government is going to take care of that. So she donated an amount of 200,000 with 100 bags of rice, 5 cartons of cooking oil, and some second-hand used clothing and other aspects that will at least give them a sigh of relief from their...
Obrimpon, hold on for us. Let's speak to the Transport Minister, because he also joined the Vice President when she visited the affected families in Kenneth.
Indeed, Pearl. We have Joseph Bukari Nikbe, who's the Minister for Transport. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Aside from the interventions that was announced by the Vice President, are there any additional interventions that you're trying to put in place?
Good evening, and thank you for having me to share some insight on the Excellency Madam Vice President's visit to the Ketekrachi island, where the boat accident occurred and took the life of 16 Ghanaians. Madam Vice President's concern and interest is how to prevent this incident from reoccurring. And so we, besides the Ghanaian hospitality of donating something to support, but the emphasis was on how, if you are a boat owner or a boat operator and doing your business to earn a livelihood, how you should do it safely, how you should engage in that river or water transport, ferrying people safely. And so the education was one of the issues or the areas he emphasized on. And again, government is ensuring that we will now move ahead of education to enforcement and compliance, because we have been doing education along the Volta Lake. In complying, what we want to do is to establish satellite offices along the Volta Lake. And already we have put an office in Pandu Toko, that we have a vessel, a search and rescue vessel in Pandu that will help in times of emergencies to be able to respond quickly to disasters. And again, we are going to open the head office in Akusombo, where they will coordinate all activities of the water transport and ensure that they comply to whatever directives that will be given to both owners and operators. For instance, we are going to employ safety guards. We have started employing safety security officers, where we will have the guards to help ensure that if your boat is to take 15 people, you have 15 life jackets on that boat. And also to ensure that you don't overload. So these were the areas where Madam Vice President was very, very concerned about. Irrespective of the donation, her interest and that of government is that this should not reoccur any longer.
Minister, we've been digging, our research desk has been digging, and over the past 3 years we've had about 60 deaths with regards to boats capsizing. Really, there's one thing implementing these safety measures, and there's another thing enforcing them. How are you going to ensure compliance of these new measures that you are putting in place?
So, like I said, we are establishing satellite offices. And as we speak, the Ghana Maritime Authority has finished mapping all the crossing areas and points where these canoes will load and offload passengers and their goods. And I told you we are going to employ safety guards. And the safety guards are going to be the compliant officers to ensure that each operator or each boat owner obeys the rules by having the number of life jackets that people who enter your boat should have. and again that you don't overload them. And now we are going to take it from that point and prosecuting both operators and both owners. It is not going to be like when it happens, we'll go and show our solidarity, show our sympathy, donate things to them and leave. No. This time we are going to enforce by prosecuting both operators and both owners who do not comply. And our safety guards, when they are trained and deployed to those crossing areas that we have mapped out, will be able to ensure that we'll bring it down drastically. So, the number of boat accidents on our lake.
Minister, so is it going to be just the those who operate the boats, or the passengers will also likely face prosecution, because it goes both ways, really?
So if you listen to Madam Vice President, the emphasis were that, look, safety on the lake or on any other mode of transport is a shared responsibility. You owe your life, and when you are entering a boat that they are not complying with any of the rules, when they are overloading, you do not go on board that boat. When they don't have life jacket, you owe it to yourself, your life, that you ensure that if there are no life jackets, you do. Look, time delayed in traveling will save a life when they don't have those facilities or life jackets or any compliance to the directives. And again, Madam Vice President told them, let's take it as if it is a vehicle. You wear your seatbelt while you are seated inside. Let's say it is Okada motorbike you are seated on top. You are supposed to wear your helmet. And if it is a boat, you are supposed to wear a life jacket. There are inconveniences in wearing life jackets. However, it is a saving tool. It is the life jacket saves lives. So for the 1 hour or maybe the 2 hours you wear it and you have your life, it is worth wearing. That was emphasis. And we are ensuring that we continue the education once we do the enforcement alongside.
And how many years are offenders likely to spend behind bars?
That is, you are now moving me into the prosecution powers, which I am not there. The Attorney General's responsibility will be that when the people are arrested, whatever charges, they will be able to tell. But what we are doing at the Ministry of Transport through the Ghana Maritime Authority is to do the education, is to do the deployment of the safety guards, and then like we are deploying safety vessels that will be on the lake to rescue in terms of dangers. But what are we going to rescue if you are not wearing a life jacket? Within a second, it is gone.
Right.
But the emphasis is wear life jacket and don't overload the boats.
Okay, Minister, thank you very much for your time this evening. That's Joseph Bukari Nikpe. He's the Minister for Transport. And Pearl, we can now go back to our correspondent.
Of course, we're going back to Obrimpon, also he's with our sister station at Dome FM. So Obrimpon, before we spoke to the Minister of Transport, just wanted to find out from you, how did the affected families respond to the Vice President's visit today? Did it bring any sort of comfort to them at all?
I think it was a way of comforting them, because they have never witnessed such a visit by a government representative when such an incident occurred. So they were happy to see the Vice President visiting them and also consoling with them and encouraging them to continue doing what they will want to do, what the government continue to support, and also extend some relief items to them. So it was a welcome news for them, and we also want to also appeal to the government to continue the education so that people will understand, will also take the measures into consideration so that such a thing will not happen. They were happy to see the Vice President traveling on that route, especially from where the incident happened. In fact, it was a terrible route that the Vice President indeed traveled to visit the affected family in that community. So it was a welcome news for them to see such a high-profile officer or like government to visit them in this time of difficulty.
Obrimpon, also thank you very much for your time, and he is with our sister station at Dome FM.
Well, we can now go to Beijing because Ghana and China are set to finalize a zero-tariff trade agreement by the end of October, paving the way for Ghanaian goods to enter the Chinese market duty-free. Well, this landmark deal, expected to boost Ghana's exports and industrial growth, is a testament to the strengthening diplomatic and economic ties between the two nations. Well, the deal is expected to attract Chinese investment into Ghana's manufacturing and agribusiness sectors. Our presidential affairs correspondent Maxwell Akpagba has more in this report.
President John Mahama began the second day of his state visits to China with bilateral discussions with Chinese President Xi Jinping. President Mahama expressed concern over the rise of unilateralism in global affairs, warning that it threatens multilateral cooperation. He urged nations that believe in multilateralism to stand in solidarity with one another. Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Okudzeto-Blakwa said President Xi expressed confidence in President Mahama's leadership to protect Chinese investments and businesses in Ghana. Later, President Mahama hosted a presidential investment forum that brought together Chinese and Ghanaian business leaders. He revealed that Ghana and China are set to conclude a zero-tariff agreement by the end of this month.
Between 2020 and 2024, China's exports to Ghana rose by nearly 46%, while Ghana's exports to China increased by over 11%. China's decision to grant zero-tariff access to Ghanaian and African products signals the confidence in our partnership. It opens vast new markets for Ghanaian exporters, agro-processors, and manufacturers. And I'm happy to inform you that we reached agreement in principle and we have targeted the end of October to be able to sign off on the zero-tariff principle. I wish to commend the government of China for this act of solidarity. We are all aware that the multilateral rules-based trading system is being upended by unilateral slapping of tariffs on different countries.
President Mahama also announced plans to establish a new green digital city.
As part of Ghana's transformation, we plan to establish a new green city that will straddle the three regions of Greater Accra, Volta, and Eastern regions. I'll soon inaugurate an interministerial committee to guide the design and feasibility study of this new city. I'll also appoint a transaction advisor to lead the process for the implementation of this all-important project. This city is planned to be a 20-year project executed in 4 phases, and my expectation is that the first phase will commence before my tenure of office runs out.
Meanwhile, Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Simon Maggi, has been making a strong case to Chinese investors on why Ghana remains one of Africa's most attractive destinations for investment.
Now, this is the Ghana-China advantage. The minister has already spoken about the zero tariff for goods from several African countries into China. The significant part of this is that China is also trying to deal with the non-tariff barriers. So they've come up with what we call the green lines. Now, if you import into China, you go to what they call the trusted economic operator. So they minimize the non-tariff barriers. And then there's also the China-Africa Trade Cooperation Fund. So where are the Ghana commercial banks and the NIBs funding available to produce and export into the Chinese market? I see the Chinese ambassador is nodding his head, so that's a sign of approval. You have access to the 1.4 billion market. Like I did say, this is one of our biggest benefits for Chinese investors is the bilateral investment treaty between the government of Ghana and the People's Republic of China, which was signed in 1989 and it came into force in 1991. And you have all this protection. So we facilitate your visas. There's protection against expropriation. There's national treatment and most favored nation. Let's break it down. National treatment, what we are basically saying is that the investment, whatever treatment we give to Ghanaian businesses, same with the most favored nation. Most favored nation, what we are simply saying is that under the laws, what we extend to other countries by way of benefits, we extend same to you, except under certain circumstances.
And my colleague from the data desk here at Joy FM, Caleb Ziblim, joins us in the studio with more on this. Now, Caleb, how significant is China as a trading partner to Ghana?
Yes, Pearl. So China is very important to Ghana's economy. They are our largest import partner. That means from all the countries we import from, China is the number 1 import country, and they are the number 4 export destination for Ghanaian products. So when we rank all the countries that Ghana exports to, China is the 4th country. It's only overtaken by Switzerland, the UAE, and South Africa. And in 2023, Ghana exported goods worth about 15.2 billion Ghana cedis to China. And that figure rose to 21.5 billion Ghana cedis in 2024. So yes, China is very important to Ghana's economy.
And what exactly does Ghana export to China, and how will this benefit the country?
Yes, so the tariffs will be on Ghana's exports to China. And in 2024, 77% of the total exports we took to China were mineral fuels and oils, mainly crude oil. So majority of what we export to China is crude oil. And then the remaining 23%, according to the Ghana Statistical Service, is classified as other products. So the removal of the tariffs means Ghana can export more petroleum products into China and potentially replacing volumes that once went to the United States under AGUA. And remember that when AGUA was operational, about 70% of Ghana's products to the US were petroleum related. So now that AGUA has been taken off and China has come in to take off their tariffs, potentially it could mean that we are taking our products from the United States into China. And beyond oil, Ghana also exports ores to China. And these ores include gold, bauxite, and manganese. So aside the oil, the next top products we export to China are gold, bauxite, and manganese, as well as cocoa, fish, wood products, and fruits. So the tariff exemption will mean that more of these Ghanaian products can make their way into the Chinese markets, particularly oil, gold, manganese, and cocoa.
Caleb Ziblim, thank you so much for that breakdown. Kenneth?
Right, let's go into the telephone lines once again and speak to Peter Kote. He's a professor of economics at ISA. Professor Kote, thank you very much for joining us this evening. How do you see this new agreement between China and Ghana?
Yeah, trade is certainly very important. Trade stimulates growth, and therefore, once we come to an agreement, a tariff agreement that ensures that there is an improved trade flow between Ghana and China, that is very positive. And China has a big market. If you look at the population of China, it's a great market for us to tap into. Our trade has always been north-south trade, but if we're able to penetrate into the Chinese market, I think it is for us.
Now that we're getting zero tariffs, there's worry. And what safeguards do you think Ghana should negotiate to protect local industries from being flooded by cheaper Chinese imports under this new tariff regime?
Yes, the fact that zero tariff doesn't mean we should allow cheap quality products to enter into our market. So we have to regulate and ensure that all products that come in meet all the necessary standards and protocols. We get value for money from this product. Of course, where it hurts local industries, that's where government comes in to provide support in terms of capacity. So you enhance the capacity of your local producers to be able to match the Chinese firms that will come and outcompete your local producers.
And that was going to be my next question, really. Do you see that this agreement will help boost exports of locally manufactured goods to China, or mainly benefit raw material exports?
It should manufacture products. We shouldn't concentrate on raw materials. You see, for raw material, we add very little value, and their prices tend to fluctuate on the international market. So we should rather concentrate on building our capacity to export manufactured products onto the market. I think we should have some value, not just raw materials.
Right, Professor Peter Kote, thank you very much. He's economics professor at ISA there. Pearl?
Well, the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat, NAIMOS, launched a major operation on Monday, October 13, targeting illegal mining hotspot in Odan Kwanta, Akenten, and the Chebi Asaman Kesi corridor. 3 excavators were found in Odan Kwanta with 2 disabled and several items, including motorbikes and water pumps, seized or destroyed. At Akanten Chebi, 2 more excavators were located near the Brim River amid signs of severe environmental damage. Along the Chebi-Asaman-Kesi route, 6 hidden excavators were discovered. Only 2 remained operational and were quickly immobilized. Residents reported widespread water pollution and forest destruction.
Well, Pearl, we will hear from NAIMOS shortly on this development, but let's still stay on Galamsey because Ghana's fight to salvage its threatened indigenous tree species continues to face major setbacks as tree conservationists battle for the growing impacts of illegal mining operations and indiscriminate farming activities. At least 4 indigenous trees are going extinct, with 39 others currently threatened by the unabated operations of the miners and illegal cloggers. Stephanie Frimpong joined the 2nd National Stakeholders Workshop on Threatened Trees Conservation and filed this report.
Globally, at least 8,000 out of the 60,000 documented plant species have been classified to be endangered by human activities. With growing environmental destruction through illegal mining and logging and the fast expansion of agricultural activities, 4 of Ghana's indigenous tree species are critically threatened, with 39 currently endangered. At the 2nd National Stakeholders Workshop on Threatened Trees Conservation, researchers, foresters, and policymakers renewed calls for a concerted action to save the trees. Project Coordinator Dr. James Amponsa highlighted the impact of the illegal activities on the endangered species despite conservatory projects to protect forest reserves and rare tree species.
The 2nd National Stakeholders Workshop on Threatened Trees is basically aimed at bringing together experts in the forest conservation industry to track progress, to also think of future actions to ensure that our conservation actions could be more coordinated and well monitored. And so the objective for the role Ofori played was to, 1, ensure that we bring together all partners to discuss issues. And then we also have a special objective of raising seedlings of threatened trees and supplying them to partner organizations so that their future could be secure. And at the moment, Ofori is also developing an information data portal on threatened trees. So this portal, which will be launched at this workshop, will help us bring a lot of information on threatened trees so that it can guide actions and help us collaborate effective conservation actions.
Representing the project's donor, Olivia Hasivier of Foundation Franklinia in Switzerland extolled Ghana's conservation model, describing it as a benchmark for other African countries.
So there is more than 60,000 tree species known and described worldwide. So it's a very important taxonomic group.
Meanwhile, some leaders of several unions have traded blame on what broke the front of organized labor after a botched industrial action planned last year to demand action on Galamsey. Vice President of TUC-UEW, Dr. Bernard Tutubuani, blamed the TUC.
We realized that TUC and other unions wanted to also go on strike. Now, as one of the wings of TUC, UTAG, and organized labor, we felt that UTAG alone wouldn't give us that kind of strength. So we joined forces with organized labor and, for that matter, TUC. Then we realized some level of betrayal from the hierarchy of TUC. So that was when we felt that we have been betrayed. So we went through the, the UTAG processes, to also isolate ourselves from the position of organized labor, and for which we also decided that we will go solo with our own strike as we had earlier planned. So we went through the process, and if you remember, UTAG went on strike. So
in a sharp rebuttal, Deputy TUC Secretary General Dr. Kwabena Nyako Otu described the claims as baseless.
We realized that TUC and other unions wanted to also go on strike. Now, as one of the wings of TUC, UTAG, and organized labor, we felt that UTAG alone wouldn't give us that kind of strength. So we joined forces with organized labor and, for that matter, TUC. Then we realized some level of betrayal from the hierarchy of TUC. So that was when we felt that we have been betrayed. So we went through the, the UTAC processes, to also isolate ourselves from the position of organized labor, and for which we also decided that we will go solo with our own strike as we had earlier planned. So we went through the process, and if you remember, UTAC went on strike.
Well, meanwhile, Secretary General of the Ghana Federation of Labour, Abraham Kumsin, blamed the Ghana Medical Association and the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association as the unions that acted in a way that betrayed the collective goal of organised labour.
It was not the TUC that betrayed the cause. It was the Ghana Medical Association and then the NET, Ghana Registered Nurses Association, the nurses.
The nurses.
And the Ghana Medical Association. When you want to embark on such action, you are saying it's a very powerful weapon, and if the weapon is not well maintained, it cannot fire. And normally, when you want to achieve results, organized labor must, work together and make sure that we address whatever concerns that we want to deal with it. But if medical personnel opt out, it weakens organized labor. There's nothing that we have done at that end. So if I hear Ghana Medical Association and nurses making noise this time around, I just don't take them serious.
And it's time for business. James Ashen is here. The IMF, we have news from the IMF, don't we?
Yeah, they're basically saying we are not out of the woods yet. There's still more we need to do to ensure fiscal discipline and also tighten our, make sure we are spending right and all of that. So basically that's the warning they're giving to, or they're issuing to Ghanaians now. Now, coming up in business this evening, IMF warns Ghana is not immune against global economic shocks despite a recent turnaround as it pushes for stronger fiscal discipline and building of buffers. And Bank of Ghana revises sanctions for issuing bad checks as it announces stricter punishment for offenders. Business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one-stop shop for all office essentials, Syntex tanks, and Pepsodent Herbal and Charcoal. Welcome back to Business on Newsnight. My name is James Ashen. We settle for the details. Now, the IMF is warning that Ghana is not immune against current global uncertainties despite the recent economic turnaround. This is coming after the fund released its Global Economic Outlook, forecasting that global growth will slow to 3.2%. Ghana, on the other hand, has seen drastic turnaround in most of its economic indicators. Speaking at a news conference in Washington, D.C. on the sidelines of the annual IMF World Bank meetings, Economic Counselor at the IMF, Pierre-Olivier Gouin-Charles, said countries like Ghana must do more to attain long-term stability.
You make sure that you have the fiscal buffers that you need, because you're going to need to use them when you're hit by one of these shocks, and if you don't have them, then the impact is going to be much larger. So making sure you protect the fiscal buffers. Second, making sure that you have the right institutional environment so that you have institutions that are trusted, that can do their job, that have frameworks that are strong. That is also going to be helpful in maintaining expectations, in maintaining some sense of stability in the economy. And third, you're going to have to rely on trading partners. No country is an island, can do things on their own. And so making sure that the global economy, that countries remain part of the global economy, that they are integrated, that they find ways to deepen trade ties with partners where it's possible.
And that was Economic Counselor at the IMF, Pierre-Olivier Gouin-Charles, speaking at a news conference in Washington, D.C. on the sidelines of the annual IMF meeting. Now, the Bank of Ghana has revised the sanctioning regime in respect of issuance of that checks for strict compliance by banks and specialized deposit-taking institutions. The Bank of Ghana, in a statement issued today, said that he had to take the action due to several abuse by customers despite warnings issued by the central bank. The following report has more.
The central bank said a bank or SDI is now obliged to levy an account holder who issues a DAT check for the first time 10% of the check's face value and issue a warning notification to the affected customer on the consequences of repeating the offense. In addition, the bank or SDI shall report the offense to the Credit Reference Bureau and the Bank of Ghana. Where a customer issues a DAT check for the second time within 1 year of the first offense, the drawee bank or SDI is required to impose a levy of 15% of the check's face value and issue another warning notification to the customer on the consequences of repeating the offense. The Drawee Bank or SDI shall report the offense to the Credit Reference Bureau and the Bank of Ghana. Where a customer issues a debt check on the third occasion within 1 year of the first offense, the Drawee Bank or SDI shall impose a levy of 20% of the check's face value. The Drawee Bank or SDI shall report the offense to the Credit Reference Bureau and the Bank of Ghana. According to the central bank, it shall ban such a customer from issuing checks within the country for a minimum period of 3 years.
And that was a news desk report. Meanwhile, Associate Professor of Finance at Andrews University in the U.S., Williams Pepper, has described the measures taken by the Bank of Ghana important to build confidence in the financial ecosystem.
So the more DAC checks are issued, let me use the Ghanaian terminology. Bounce checks are issued. It weakens your financial institutions. There is research pointing to the fact that developed countries are developed because of their financial sector. So as a developing country hoping to be developed, if we allow individuals to issue Ghanaian term bounce checks that bounce, it is going to destroy the entire financial system. We don't want to let this become a systemic effect. So I'm sure the strong sanctions Bank of Ghana has issued will solve it once and for all.
And I was Associate Professor of Finance at Andrews University in the U.S., Williams Pepper. Still on the Bank of Ghana, it has now set October 28, 2025 to commence the celebration of the 60th anniversary of the Ghana cedi. The celebration, which was initially planned for August, was suspended after the helicopter crash in the Ashanti region that claimed 8 lives. The following report has more.
As part of the activities to mark the 60th anniversary of the cedi, there will be a national launch ceremony at the Accra International Conference Center with President John Mahama as the special guest of honor. There will also be a cedi van regional roadshow, exhibitions, education and outreach, as well as public education campaigns on clean note handling, currency security features, and history of the currencies since independence. In addition, the Bank of Ghana will organize currency conference featuring stakeholders from central banks across the world, academia, and the private sector.
And that was a news desk report. And in the business news on Newsnight with me, James Ishenken.
Well, thank you very much, James. It's now time for sports, and Daniel Cranton is here with the latest. Dan, what do you have for us?
Yeah, a hat-trick from Victor Osimhen and a stoppage time goal from Frank Onyeka guided Nigeria to a solid 4-0 win over Benin in their final FIFA World Cup qualifying Uyo. The Super Eagles finished second in Group C and will now go into the Inter-Confederation playoff to fight for a spot at the World Cup. Going into the game, Nigeria were third in Group C with 14 points, sitting 1 point behind second place South Africa and 3 behind leaders Benin. But Nigerians changed their destiny with their own efforts, thrashing Benin 4-0 to move into second place. Thanks to their impressive goal-scoring performance, the result also confirmed that they will finish as one of the best 4 runners-up from the CAF qualifiers who have a chance to qualify to the World Cup through the Intercontinental playoff. That's an end for sports.
So that means Nigeria are still having a chance.
Yeah,
you say.
They're still alive. So they will play the playoff game in Africa. That is in March 2026.
Okay.
And the winner will go on to play the final playoff game against the Asian region.
I've been seeing on social media people saying agenda delayed is not agenda denied.
It's very, very difficult, but they are still alive.
Right. Thank you very much, Daniel, for bringing us the latest in sports. And let's bring you more stories tonight, because the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, GTEC, continues its quest to ensure academic integrity as it directs 2 officials under the Ministry of Health to justify their use of the academic title doctor. Now, Medical Superintendent of the Wa Municipal Hospital, Bukari Zakari, and Acting Registrar of the Traditional Medicine Practice Council, Bukari Yusuf, are the latest to be asked to provide documentary evidence to support their claims in separate letters signed by its Director General, Professor Ahmed Jinapo Abdullahi. GTEC raised concerns about the authenticity of their academic qualifications and has demanded responses. And my colleague Noella Karen Yale joins us in the studio with details of the commission. Noella, what exactly does the GTEC say in these letters?
Well, Ken, the commission, in 2 separate
2005 directed Dr. Bukari Zakari, who's the medical superintendent of the Wa Municipal Hospital, and Mr. Yakubu Tobo Yusuf, who's the acting registrar of the Traditional Medicine Practice Council, to stop using the title doctor unless they can provide proof that they obtained it from recognized accredited institutions. Now, in the first letter to Dr. Bukari Zakari, GTech noted that he may have obtained a PhD from the Atlantic International University in the US, but per their checks, the institution is not accredited by any recognized authority in its home country. And by that, the commission is therefore asking him to submit his degree certificate, transcript, and details of the awarding institution, or stop using the title altogether. Now, in the case of Mr. Yakubu Tobo Yusuf, the commission raised concerns over his use of the title Dr. MH, stating that it had not approved that usage under the Education Regulatory Bodies Act 2020, Act 1023. Now, he was equally directed to submit similar document for verification or cease using the title, and both men were given up to October 24 to comply, and the Ministry of Health has been copied in both cases for enforcement.
That's quite an interesting development, but both men have been speaking to you. What have they been saying? Really?
Absolutely, Ken. Dr. Bukari Zakari maintains that he obtained his doctor title through legitimate means and from an accredited university in the US. He, however, questions the manner in which GTech communicates such issues publicly, as he believes the Commission's approach appears to aim at tarnishing the hard-earned reputation of professionals like himself.
For the PhD I acquired, I duly was admitted into the school. I went through vigorous academic tuition for 3 good years. Then I completed with a thesis that was published, and I was duly awarded the PhD. But what I'm hearing from GTech is that the school is not accredited. So I quickly called my supervisor. He told me they are well accredited. And during the Zoom classes, we're doing it with the American citizens. So if it is not accredited, how would students from the US be attending that course together with foreigners? So they promised me they were going to send me the accreditation and the profile of the school, so that I can present it to GTech. There is nothing to hide. I duly got it. I wrote a thesis for about almost getting to 1 year.
Right, so that was the medical superintendent of the Wa Municipal Hospital in the Upper West Region, Dr. Bukari Zakari. And we've also been hearing from Yakubu Yusuf. What has he been saying?
Well, he says he only got to know about the letter through social media.
I haven't received a copy of the letter officially. My friends basically tagged me on a post, I think, on City. I have not received any letter. So, as requested, of course, there are state agents which I respect. So, officially, I will submit my documents to GTech as they requested. I think there is a deadline. I've been busy in the field. We've been doing some field work with cracking down on traditional practitioners who are recalcitrant to criticize. So, as soon as I get back to the office, and I've also checked with the office, there is.
And Kenneth will be telling listeners about the Ecobang Journeys Habitat Fair in a bit. But before that, the minority in Parliament has distanced itself from the ongoing delay in the payment of salaries owed to thousands of newly recruited nurses and midwives, insisting that the fault lies squarely with the government and its agencies. Speaking to the press earlier today, Ranking Member on Parliament Health Committee, Naana Jane Opoku-Agyemang, said financial clearance and payment authorization for the recruitment of the health workers were duly granted under the 2024 budget, meaning funds were already allocated for them to be paid.
Antecedents. You have a financial clearance. Financial clearance is issued when there is budgeted for. So monies are available for you to appropriate. And this is why you get financial clearance. No sector would issue a financial clearance because of financial laws when it's illegal for you to recruit. So you had clearance issued last year, July, and then some of the staff were recruited. Some of the recruitment were done in institutions like the teaching hospitals and also CHAC. So that reduced it to about maybe about 8,000 or 7,000 of them were recruited. So about 6,000 more were left. Now, those who were not recruited was because the Ghana Health Service delayed. That's the Ghana Health Service delay. So you have a reason to query the Ghana Health Service for the delays, why orders started 5 months before December 7th. It was issued July, and then Ministry of Health and CHAG, their staff were working from end of July and August, and they were being paid.
Well, the minority here has also accused the governing NDC government of drowning public administration into politics and deception, while health workers languish without pay. Nana Free has branded the government's delay as deliberate.
So coming 10 months down to say that they have to go for cabinet approval is untenable, it's unacceptable. No, it's not right.
Maybe they will talk about
what sort of dialogue? When you have clearance? When you have a financial clearance, you only have to, the process of this is you have to, the Ministry of Health will have to write to the finance minister for an extension. That's all. It doesn't. And it's not as if financial clearance don't expire. It has expired in all governments under the Fourth Republic. Even under this NDC, they will issue clearance that some will expire. All they will do is to write extension. They will not go to cabinet.
And Kenneth, let's talk about the EcoBank Journeys Habitat Fair happening in just 9 days at the Accra International Conference Centre. And choosing a place to stay involves many considerations, and security is certainly a top priority. That's where Special Gardens, a master planned gated community, comes in. By selecting them at the EcoBank Journeys Habitat Fair, you can eliminate your worries about safety.
Our brand is built on a foundation of integrity, innovation, and customer-centered solutions in the Ghana real estate sector. We understand purchasing a home is not just a financial decision, it's an emotional one as well. So we know people want to feel connected to whatever they are purchasing, and so we seek to offer products that represent that. We are trying to deliver developments that blend quality, affordability, and modern architecture and amenities. Developing this since early 2023, almost wrapping up with this one.
I'm definitely going to be there, Pearl. I hope you're also going to be there as well.
Of course I will be. The 23rd to the 26th of October at the Accra International Conference Centre.
Right. And before we go, though, here are a few of your messages you've been sending to our WhatsApp platform. This is from Francis in Accra. He says, in fact, it is time NDC and Ghanaians as a whole told the MPP and its MPs something in their face on governance issues as we saw under them. The rots they left in all sectors and Labour Front making worker unions to go on strikes now and then for NDC government to look for money and pay them. They got to be holding press conferences. And this one is from Nana at Spintex Road. He says, most Nigerians hold Ghanaian passports in the UK and the US. I'm sure Ghanaians aided them. Hence, we should be expecting more deportees in such situations. These are some of the messages you've been sending to our WhatsApp platform, and that will be it for News Night tonight. My name is Kenneth Gyasi.
And I am Ofori.
And of course, right after News Night will be Geek Squad with Adobia and her crew. Adobia, good to see you. What are we discussing tonight?
Hi, good evening. Tonight we are continuing with our Cybersecurity Awareness Month topic, and the focus is on how you can bank safely online here in Ghana. I know when it comes to banking, some people really prefer to use the digital platform.
Right.
But how can you do that safely? That's what we'll be talking about.
That should be an interesting topic. We'll be listening.